Picture the first one, a calf born in the lab in Dallas sometime around 2028, taking its first breath. Wet, blinking, alive. And here's the strange part. Before that animal can even stand up, it might already belong to someone. Colossal is trying to legally own the mammoth. Not just the science, the animal itself, the name. And maybe, if you follow the paperwork all the way down, every calf it ever has. I know how that sounds. So let me show you exactly how a company gets to own a living thing. Because it has happened before, and the trail runs through one Supreme Court vote, one very famous mouse. Here is that question. Hold on to it for the next 10 minutes. If you own the mammoth, do you own its children? We will get there. First, the mouse. In 1972, a microbiologist at General Electric named Ananda Chakrabarty built a bacterium. He engineered a strain of Pseudomonas to eat crude oil, the kind of thing you would want after a spill. Useful, clever, and, he argued, his. The US Patent Office said no. You cannot patent a living thing. That had been the rule for as long as there had been a rule. Chakrabarty refused to drop it, and the fight climbed all the way to the Supreme Court. On June 16, 1980, the court sided with him by a single vote, 5-4. Remember that number, because the entire idea of owning an animal balances on it. The majority wrote a line that has echoed through every lab since. A living thing made by humans can be patented. Anything under the sun, they said, that is made by man. The 4 justices who lost saw exactly where this was going. They warned that judges were deciding something only Congress should touch. They were right to worry. The door they pointed at is the one Colossal is walking through right now. It opened fast. By 1987, the Patent Office said the ruling did not stop at germs. Animals counted too, and 1 year later, it happened for real. US Patent 4,736,866. A mouse. Harvard had engineered it to reliably grow cancer, a living instrument for cancer research. They called it the oncomouse, and it became the first animal a company could legally own. Now here is the part everyone skips, and it is the part that should make your stomach drop, because it shows you what owning an animal actually does. Harvard handed the exclusive license to DuPont, and DuPont treated that mouse like a product line. If you were a cancer researcher in the 1990s and you wanted to use it, you did not just order a mouse, you signed DuPont's terms. You agreed to report what you found. You agreed not to pass the mice to the lab down the hall. In some cases, the company wanted a claim on whatever you discovered using their animal. Sit with that for a second. The single most useful tool in cancer research, a disease that kills millions, and there was a toll booth standing in front of it. Scientists were furious. Some labs quietly switched to other mice just to dodge the paperwork. Some experiments simply never happened because the friction was not worth it. It got bad enough that the National Institutes of Health had to step in. In 1999, the NIH negotiated a deal with DuPont just to let academic scientists use the mouse more freely. A government agency had to broker a peace treaty over a mouse. Because once a living thing has an owner, the owner gets to decide who is allowed to touch it. Keep that mouse in your mind. It is going to walk back onto the screen. Because not every country agreed with America. When the same patent reached Canada, the Canadian Supreme Court looked at the oncomouse and said no. In 2002, it ruled that a higher life form is not an invention you get to own. So the exact same animal was private property in the United States and just a creature one border to the north. The science did not change, only the paperwork did. So that is roughly where the law stands by the 2000s. You can own a mouse, at least in some countries, if you built it, which raises the obvious question. How far does this reach? Could a company own your genes? The Supreme Court answered in 2013. In a case against a company called Myriad Genetics, it drew a line. A gene the way nature wrote it cannot be owned, no matter who finds it or isolates it. But a version built in a lab, edited, synthetic, that can. Nature is off limits. Invention is fair game. Hold that line in your head. Nature versus invention. Because Colossal is about to drive a truck straight through the middle of it. Colossal Biosciences is the de-extinction company. As of its funding round in September 2025, it is valued at $10.3 billion. You have seen the highlights: the dire wolves, the woolly mouse, a real living mouse with a thick mammoth-style coat, shown off in March 2025. The dodo, the moa, the thylacine, all on the board. here is what does not make the highlight reel. In April 2025, MIT Technology Review published a piece by the reporter Antonio Regalado. He had gone digging through Colossal's patent filings, and the title he chose tells you what he found. He called it Jurassic Patent. Because Colossal is not only patenting the lab tricks, the edits, the methods, the filings reach further than that. They reach toward the engineered animals themselves, and the company trademarked the name of its woolly mouse. It brands its creatures the way you brand a product, because to Colossal, that is partly what they are. So read that opening line again. One company, moving to hold the method, the animal, and the name. And now the question that breaks the whole thing open. If they patent the mammoth, what are they actually patenting? Because remember the rule. Nature cannot be owned. Only invention can. So stop and ask it honestly. Is Colossal's mammoth nature, or is it invention? The answer is stranger than a simple yes or no. It is not a mammoth at all. Their own chief science officer, Beth Shapiro, has described the dire wolves as gray wolves with 20 edits across 14 genes. One of Colossal's own advisors, the geneticist Tom Gilbert, put it as plainly as a scientist can. No chance in hell, he said. A dire wolf looks like that. The mammoth they are building toward is not a resurrected mammoth. It is an Asian elephant, edited to survive the cold. A proxy, an extraordinary, wildly expensive proxy. And that is the trap. The only reason anyone can own this mammoth is that it was never fully a mammoth. A real one, brought back exactly as it was, would legally be nature and nobody could touch it. The thing that makes it ownable is the exact thing the critics keep mocking. It is not the real animal. They can hold it only because they changed it. A company could hold a patent on a living, modified elephant, call it a mammoth, and own it. The label on the box and the animal inside do not even have to match. At this point, you might be thinking, fine, it is paperwork. Who actually cares who holds a patent? Ben Lamb, Colossal's CEO, answered that himself. He told MIT Technology Review that the patents give the company control over things like releases. Releases. As in, whether these animals ever set foot in the wild, and where, and on whose say-so. Sit with that, because it is the whole game. Putting a species back into an ecosystem is one of the largest decisions a society can make. It touches food chains, public land, entire countries, and the control over that decision could sit quietly behind one private company's intellectual property. There is a blunter reason ownership matters too. A $10.3 billion valuation needs it. You do not become a company worth more than $10 billion by giving away the thing you spent a fortune to build. The ownership is not a side effect of the science. It is the business model wearing a lab coat. Now, remember the question I asked you to hold. If they own the mammoth, do they own its babies? We have an answer, and once again, we have seen it before. Just with plants. When Monsanto patented a soybean, an Indiana farmer named Vernon Bowman bought some, planted them, and saved the seeds from his own harvest to plant again the next year. Farmers have done that for 10,000 years. Monsanto sued him, and in 2013, the Supreme Court sided with the company. The patent, it ruled, reached the next generation of seeds, and the one after that. The plant copied itself, and the owner still owned every copy. Now point that at a mammoth. If Colossal owns the first one, who owns its calf? And the calf after that? You are no longer talking about a single animal in a lab. You are talking about a herd that makes more of itself, every member born already belonging to someone. That is not a research tool anymore. That is a bloodline with an owner. And here is the part that should genuinely keep you up. None of this has actually been tested. No one has ever patented a de-extinct species. No court has ruled on it. It has never happened. Which means that calf, the one we started with, taking its first breath around 2028, would be one of the very first real tests there is. The first case will not just decide the mammoth, it will write the rule for the dodo, the moa, the thylacine, and every animal that comes after. One filing, one ruling, and the law for an entire industry that does not fully exist yet gets locked in. To be fair to Colossal, they have a real argument. This work costs staggering amounts of money, and patents are how you fund it, and how you stop someone reckless from copying it and doing it badly. That is not nothing. But the other side, including the reporting in MIT Technology Review, points at what we would be trading away. an unprecedented legal monopoly over living things. Not gadgets. Animals, creatures with bodies and instincts and a place in the world, owned on paper by the people who assembled them in a building in Dallas. We already watched the small version of this with a mouse, where it took the federal government to pry the toll booth open. We watched the plant version, where a farmer lost his own seeds in court. The mammoth is the same fight, scaled up to a 10-foot animal that is supposed to roam free and make more of itself while it does. For about 4,000 years, since the last mammoths died out on Wrangel Island off the coast of Siberia, the mammoth has belonged to no one. The next one might take its first breath already owned, with a name on it, not its own. If you want to see the animal where this stops being a thought experiment and gets real first, the one colossal may be closest to actually pulling off, watch Nothing About the Thylacine Coming Back is Normal next.